I bought this neglected 1950 Ford Coupe for $2,500, and I thought I'd have it cruising by Monday. It's got a small block, an overdrive, and it looks perfect. Turns out it's far from it, and it might be one of the sketchiest cars I've ever had. That's really bad. What on earth? It is not running good at all. The first step was to get the car off the trailer and into the shop. Now, I really wanted to drive it in under its own power, and to do that, I would have to tackle what the seller called a dead fuel pump. Luckily, it wasn't exactly dead. The outlet barb had just popped out, which happens a lot with these cheap pumps. Don't buy these things. I just popped it back in, and we were ready to give it a try. Okay. Yeah! So that was way easier than I expected. Supposedly this thing hadn't run in like a year, but I guess we just didn't try to crank it in like a year. So this is the B&M automatic floor shifter. The whole floor is moving. If you can get past all the jank, this thing is pretty darn cool. What I haven't told you yet is that me and this car have actually crossed paths before. My dad owned this thing very briefly a few years back before he traded it off to my cousin. Now, when I bought it from him, I thought that I had the inside scoop on the car, but I completely forgot about the improperly located fuel pump, the horrible wiring of the improperly located fuel pump, and I didn't know it yet, but this would not be the only important detail I had forgotten. I really wanted to take this car up the road the second it came off that trailer, but between the broken fuel pump and the fact that the brakes were grabbing, yeah, we got some brake problems. I decided to just be a coward, pull it in the shop, and see what I could fix. The first thing I wanted to tackle was the fuel pump itself. I was absolutely dreading that job, and it did turn out to be kind of troublesome simply because that optimal location for an electric fuel pump right there at the outlet of the tank as low as possible was already completely occupied by exhaust pipes and the rear axle itself. I just couldn't fit the thing in there. I tried several different ways, so I had to do something a little bit weird. I had to run a metal line all the way around to the back of the fuel tank and mount the fuel pump right behind it. Yeah, not an optimal location for your fuel pump. I've done stuff like this before and have had pretty good luck with it, but this is in no way a recommendation by me to put your fuel pump here. If you ever find yourself mounting an electric fuel pump like this to your frame rail, a good tip is to find a piece of sturdy rubber and make yourself an extra spacer. What this does is it helps give you just a little bit of vibration protection between your bracket and your frame and makes your fuel pump just a little bit quieter. Now, this particular pump is Carter part number P4070. If you're familiar with this pump, you may notice that I am mounting it in the wrong direction. I am mounting it horizontal, not vertical. You have to mount this pump vertical. I didn't even think to check that. I just thought, oh, this'll be a lot cleaner to mount it this way. I didn't no more get it bolted and mounted than I realized what I had done. Don't you love when you do stuff like that? Fortunately, I got pretty lucky. Just by taking the bracket off and bending it, I was able to get a position that I was relatively happy with. While I had that bracket off, I also decided to go ahead and add some Rivet Nuts to it. That way I wouldn't have to fool around with bolts and nuts every time I wanted to take this thing off. It's always a good idea to think ahead and make things easier for future maintenance. Once the fuel pump was mounted and the plumbing was done, it was time to move on to the wiring, and in the interest of time, I'm going to skim over that really quickly. I mounted a relay right next to the battery, soldered a bunch of wires. I lost my heat gun, so I had to heat all the shrink sleeve with a lighter. It's worth noting that this is the point in the project where I started to really grasp how bad the wiring actually was. They had used a high-quality harness, but it was absolutely botched. Unfortunately, every bit of this is going to have to get ripped completely out, and we're going to have to start from scratch. But at least that's a problem for a future me in a future video. Right now, it was time to do a test to figure out if all my hard work actually worked. We got everything hooked up, so I'm going to go ahead, hit the key, fuel pump should come on, and we can check for leaks. Well, I hear it. That's a good sign. It's a little louder than the other one, but it's not too bad. No leaks here. Way more rubber hose than I normally run. we are going to be changing that as soon as my 5/16 line gets in. All right, we got no leaks. Let's see if she cranks up. Yep. She seems to be running pretty good, all things considered. Fuel pressure seems to be rock solid, so I'd say that's a win. I decided to tackle the brakes next because I knew that was the biggest thing keeping me from my goal. Even the slightest touch from the pedal was causing the brakes to lock up instantly. And that's a really common problem, especially with drum brakes when you let them sit. What's actually happening is the wheel cylinders themselves are seizing. When that happens, they're unable to return to their center point. This means all your free travel is used up, and the second you touch your brakes, they lock down. Now, this is one of those problems that usually fixes itself with normal driving. The wheel cylinders should free up over time, but I needed results now. So once again, out of desperation, I resorted to a Band-Aid fix. I loosened the adjustment on the brakes, which gave me some of my free travel back, and that won't fix our problem, but it should make it a lot more drivable in the meantime. With the brakes back together, I decided to tackle that front tire that kept going flat. Unfortunately, it was during that process that disaster struck. I was working on patching the tire, and I needed an air hose. I'm pulling the air hose out over here, and it's hung on something, and I went back to old me, who's not used to having, you know, YouTube stuff around. I snatched on the cord like it owed me money, and I heard a crash. Oh, that hurts. The lens is okay, at least. I was really bummed about this camera, but I didn't have time to dwell on it because it was finally time for a real road test. If you're enjoying this video so far, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It really does help. And if you have a story where a bad memory got the best of you, drop that down in the comment box below. Well, there's a gear. There we go. 60 mile an hour right now, she just cruises. I just heard a weird noise. I don't know what that is. Yeah, these brakes aren't so good that I would drive them all the time. Find that magic gear. It may very well be drive shaft vibration because it's on D-cell. This flexes so much it's hard to find the right gear. This is a cool car. I got a killer deal on it. Man, it is janky. In case you couldn't hear the noise that I was complaining about, the car is making an extremely loud grinding noise on deceleration. This is that same noise bumped up a little bit for you to hear it. And I'll be honest, this was not the test drive I was hoping for. It definitely showed me that my memory is not as good as I thought it was, and neither was this car. But this was no time for regrets, so I pulled it back on the lift to have a closer look, and it didn't take me long to get a pretty good idea of the problem. Drive shaft vibration from pinion angle, because it was lowered. And it has a pinion angle adjusting shim in it at the moment. U-joints are new. Everything looks okay. But when you get it down level, I'm not sure what that pinion angle's doing. So this is proof that this car will never be super nice. It wasn't a bad car, they just didn't know how to patch anything. The interesting part about this was, even though this car hasn't been changed much since the last time my father owned it, I have no memory of this noise. But a quick look at the drive shaft angle at ride height confirmed my suspicion that something was definitely off down there. And since I couldn't fix it in the time that I had left, I had to just ignore it. So I gave it a quick oil change, adjusted the brakes one last time in the hopes that it would make it a little better. Spoiler alert, it didn't. And after a quick and relatively uneventful test drive to my local filling station to fill it up with fuel, I decided that the car was as ready as it was going to get for tomorrow's trip. Gotta find that secret combo to get it to crank just right. All right, Monday morning. Let's see if this old girl will get to work. The drive to work really wasn't that bad. I actually enjoyed most of it, other than the horrible noise and the really sketchy brakes and the fact that the car was driving terrible and for some reason running slightly worse than it was the day before. Almost as if it sensed that my employment status was entirely in its hands. But the old gal held up and I managed to keep my job. At least for now. That's it, we made it. And we made it sort of in one piece. All right, that does it. We made it, we're good to go. I'm gonna call it for now, go get to work. All right, day is done. Time to head home. It's been a long day and it's hot. I'm really hoping she cranks. Yeah. All right, we can be friends, we can be enemies. This is the moment you decide. Thank you. Or maybe you're gonna be that way about it. Better to be feared than loved. Apparently, I should not have given this car an ultimatum because after that, it ran terrible. It's deciding to run rough, and I don't like that because it won't crank back if it shuts off. Yeah. It is not running good at all. But in all fairness, it was my own fault. This carburetor had been screaming for attention this entire time, and I chose to ignore it because I was in a hurry. From this point on, it was misfiring and it would try to die every time the car came to a stop. And the carburetor troubles themselves wouldn't have been that big of a deal, except there was some sort of electrical issue, either the ballast resistor or the ignition switch itself, which caused the car to lose spark while cranking. This meant that the tune-up and carburetor had to be really close to perfect for it to even crank. Well, that was the definition of limp it home, but I literally see the driveway. Technically, we have made it. And I think it's going to be a while before we try this again. Alright, forget it. She literally just sputtered and died. But we made it, and that's all that matters. This footage was shot over a month ago, and this was the last time I took this car on the street. I did, however, decide to tear down the carburetor and see what went wrong. It turned out to be a leaking power valve. The bottom line is, even though this car is really cool and has a lot of potential, it is just not ready for the road quite yet. It has quite a few serious problems that need addressing. Ultimately, I decided to go ahead, finish the bodywork and paint the car, and finish all of this mechanical stuff after that. So if you want to see this car again, hit that subscribe button and stick around. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.